Hello, children.
Next part of our chapter, crop production and management.
And after this, we have adding manure and fertilizers. Now, what do we mean by manure and fertilizer? Manure is something that is naturally found. Let's see the difference between the fertilizer and the manure. Fertilizer is man-made inorganic salt. Inorganic as in we are producing it in the factories, and therefore it has no living component. Nothing was living before it was produced, whereas manure is the decomposition of decomposition of cattle during the um, uh, cattle dung and plant residues. That means it's nothing but decomposed and natural substances. Means the thing that is being added as manure was at one point of time living. Fertilizers are prepared in factories, therefore there was nothing living. They just go on adding the chemicals and then the fertilizer is prepared. But manure can be prepared in fields, at home, anywhere. Even vermicompost, if you have heard about it, it's prepared at homes. And then fertilizer does not provide any humus to the soil. Now humus, we know it's the organic part of the soil which is fertile and helps the plant to grow, but fertilizer doesn't provide that, whereas manure provides humus for the soil. It gives its fertility back in a natural way. Fertilizers are very rich in plant nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Basically, these are the three ingredients that are put in fertilizer. But manure is rich in plant nutrients. It's a naturally found thing, therefore, it is natural. And there is no such concentration of nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium. It has all of its requirement in an abundant way, but no concentration of any one chemical. Now, advantages of manure, what are they? It enhances the water holding capacity of the soil. That means the soil is becoming clayey because of manure. It makes the soil porous, due to which it exchanges gases becomes easily. Now here what happens is, because of the manure, the dead and decaying things, there is a lot of gap in between the soil content, and therefore the gases are exchanged. That means the atmospheric nitrogen gets into the soil and it's fixed by the bacteria which is already present in the soil. We'll come to that later in the next lesson, but right now we require to understand that the gases are exchanged by the roots, and therefore it becomes easier when it is added with manure. It increases the number of friendly microbes. Now here, because we know that the manure is something that is naturally found, therefore there are going to be microbes as in microorganisms, and these microorganisms are friendly. Why? Because they just help the plant to grow better, not something that is just pure salt or inorganic thing like fertilizer. And this manure, again, it improves the texture of soil. It makes the soil quite soft and pliant for the roots to take in. That is why it is improving the texture of soil again. Now next step we come to is irrigation. Now irrigation is nothing but supply of water at regular intervals. Plants require water. We know that we have plants at home and we have to water them regularly. If we don't water the plants would die. Similarly, the crops also need to be watered, and because it's such a large scale plantation, we have to irrigate using certain watering methods. Now earlier what happened was, they used to pour water with the help of pitcher from the well. They used to drag the water out and then pour it for the field. There were rivulets, gutter like things made,
Moat.
and the water would reach each and every plant, but not uniformly. And then again they started getting the help of animals. In certain cases the animal would go round and round, and therefore the water would be lifted from the well, and therefore the water would be reaching the plants. But the uniformity and the labor required was questionable. And after that we came to modern methods. Now in modern method, what happened, we started using motors. When they were invented, after that this motor started helping the farmer with irrigation. We started getting the sprinkler irrigation, and then now what we have is drip irrigation. Drip irrigation is like intravenous things that's given to us when we are sick. Similar kind of thing, the water is directly given to the root, so that there is very less wastage of water. Sprinkler system is a good thing, but then the water is spread everywhere. The plant may or may not require that much of water, still it's given. But drip irrigation, drop by drop it's given the water, and therefore it's absorbing the entire content of water and growing much better. Then we have protection from weeds. Now, what are weeds? Weeds are unnecessary plants, plants which are not needed, which were not actually planted, but still they are growing there. How do they come there? The question arises in the mind. Now, there are certain things like dispersal of seed we have studied last year. The seeds were dispersed by plant, by wind, and by water, and by air. So similar kind of things happen, and the seeds of weeds get dispersed and they get into the farm. And in the farm, these weeds are fast growing and they take up much more nutrients than the normal plant. So what happens is they take up the nutrients from the actual food grain, the crop, and they grow better, whereas the food grains, the crops, are suffering. That's why weeds are to be removed, and the farm has to be protected from the weeds. Now these weeds, how do they remove it? They use weedicide. Now weedicide is nothing but a kind of chemical mixture which is sprayed so that the weeds don't remain there and it does not affect the crop. They put a mask on their face and then they sprinkle it, like just like pesticides, weedicide is also sprayed. Now next step, now the plants have all grown up and they need to be harvested. Now what do we mean by harvesting? Harvesting is cutting of crop after it is mature, that is called as harvesting. In harvesting, crops are pulled out or cut close to the ground. It usually takes 3 to 4 months for cereal crop to mature. Now what do we mean by cereal crop? Cereal crops are the ones like jawar, bajra, wheat, all these things are cereal crops, and they require 3 to 4 months, and after those hard work, 3 to 4 months, they are harvested. Harvesting is done using sickle in earlier days, but nowadays and then they had to remove the chaff by threshing, and after this there were so many processes, but all of them are put in one and it's called as a combine nowadays. As we can see in the picture, the combine is a harvester as well as thresher. That means you are just moving the machinery through the field and the entire crop is not just harvested but threshed and everything is done. And from there it goes to winnowing. Winnowing is nothing but removing the unnecessary things, chaff by, and all those things that's not required. Chaff, that is husk or the skin of the food grain, so that is all removed by this winnowing, and then it is supposed to be stored. Now where do we store it? The food grain is at such a large scale that it has to be stored in huge bins, huge containers, and these containers have a specific name called silos. These silos store food grains and then it's kept in a temperature controlled climate, because the food grain should not get spoiled. That is why they are stored in such a way. Farmers store grain in jute bags or metallic bins. However, large scale storage of grain is done in silos and granaries to protect from pests like rats and insects. And even dried neem leaves are used because it's a natural pesticide. So they are putting it there so that there won't be any insects or rats or anything as such coming in and eating away our food grain. After that, we have food for animal. Even animal food is grown in some places, and this animal food is grown in a similar manner and it's called as
helping the
animal husbandry. Animals are born and brought up, like poultry farm we have, like honeybee we have this thing, sericulture is there for silkworms, honeybee, that is beekeeping. All these things are there. These are all animal husbandry and they require proper
And this food is also cultivated and grown in farms just like human food grains. So this is how agriculture helps not just humans but animals too. And these are the keywords that we have to study. These keywords are to be learnt and noted down in your notebooks for future references. Now, these are the points that we have covered in the chapter. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. Good day.